Thank you so much. It's an honor for me to be here, and I got here in the State Assembly into Albany in sort of a roundabout way. I never thought this is where I would end up in my life, but as a lawyer and a small business owner and the mother of a U.S. Marine, today's Legion Day, very proud. Jason asked me to come and speak to you a little bit about some of the issues I've stood for, and I think it's one of them is casino gaming. And before I get into that, I just want to let you know that my district, for any of you who have looked at a map of what happened in the redistricting process last year, I was one of it's been described as a crime, but I used to represent 18 towns in Oneida County and 9 in Oswego. And I fought the battle to be in that position. I actually ran against a Republican Party chairman in a primary to win that seat. So the next year when redistricting came around, I was moved from the 18 towns and 9 in Oneida and 9 in Oswego to a district that starts in New Hartford, which is my hometown, and runs 7 counties long, about 1 town wide, almost 200 miles, all the way almost to West Point. So somebody was trying to tell me to get out of Oneida County, apparently. But the reason, and I've been fighting this battle against a lot of and I don't want to say Republicans because I'm a strong, principled Republican, but I believe in Republican principles and I believe in our Constitution. And one of the reasons that I got involved in the entire casino gambling issue is because I do represent a full-blooded, genuine Oneida Indian. And those aren't the people that you're seeing up at the gambling casino. These are the people that have historic Aboriginal roots in our community and who aren't interested in gambling because gambling isn't part of their traditional culture. But just to point out the protection of this poor man who lives very, very poorly, he's modest, who really believes in traditional culture. He was actually a derivative of one of what they call the first and second Christian parties, who were some of the original Oneidas in this community when they were that's who their influence was. So as a good Christian, he doesn't believe in gambling, believe it or not. So as I got involved in this situation, it really was about advocating for him and for our rights as citizens, because he also is an American citizen and a state citizen, and he's protected by our Constitution as well. And one thing that I think I've experienced as a member of the State Assembly is how much we disregard our Constitution. The state Constitution, yes, but especially the federal Constitution. And thank you. And for years, you have come to advocate, the People for Constitutional Freedoms, for these very important rights. And we've lost our individual rights as we have this growing, massive federal bureaucracy which is choking the individual rights, our religious freedoms, our right to bear arms, some of the 2 most important rights that we have under the Bill of Rights. And that's the greatest passion I have, is how to protect this Constitution, how to have people understand it. I have one in my bag. I carry it with me everywhere. I also have a state Constitution in my desk, which I keep, which I wish some of my colleagues would read, because many of the bills that we do present before the State Assembly are, in fact, not constitutional even under our state Constitution. But those are some of the issues that I'm fighting for because they're worth it. You're here. Your presence in huge numbers is testament to your dedication to those principles. A little bit about the casino gaming. I didn't like the way the bill was presented. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it takes into account I think it's almost abusive to people who are underprivileged. Encourages gambling and encourages a behavior that we're going to just capitalize on. I would have rather have seen, if we had to do it at all, a bill that would at least make it fair for others and not promote this type of corporatism and corruption that we see so much in gambling. But that's my basic premise for how I got involved in the whole casino bill and fought this for the last several years, and am fighting it statewide. It was close. You notice there were some votes in the statewide bill that didn't get, some areas didn't pass it, or it was close. But who's going to challenge the hundreds of millions of dollars that was put into the votes on those? But one other important quick thing I wanted to say, as we have session right now, is I want to talk a little bit about the Women's Equality Act and why I voted no. And I think it was a really important vote that came up. I think the Women's Equality Act was much more of an optical initiative by the governor than it was substantive. It was really not just the expanded abortion provision, which was just unacceptable, but also the fact that so many labor law bills were put in and disguised as women's equality that would really hurt a women-owned business. And I'm the co-owner of a women-owned business. The Women's Equality Act wouldn't have been good for me either under that principle. And if I thought the agenda for the Women's Equality Act was so great as so many of the Democrats and promoted, I'd be a Democrat. But I think that the one aspect of the Women's Equality Act that I do support, and I see it's something that you recognize as an important issue, is the human trafficking aspect of that. And I know it sounds remote to many of us, but it's actually a reality in our communities, in upstate New York particularly. And I think it's our modern day version of slavery, and I'm glad you're taking the initiative to help those needy people, and many of them who have fallen on hard times, because it is an important issue. But that bill on the 1 point out of the 10-point Women's Equality Act, I actually have sponsored in the state assembly to advance. That's the one bill I could accept out of the Women's Equality Act. But again, these are issues that have to deal with the Constitution. And that's what we take an oath to uphold, and I know that you're out there fighting for these rights, and the rights of the individual, to me, are the most important and the most precious, and also the most under attack by this incredibly enormous and growing state and federal government. And you are fighting the fight in New York. You're fighting machine politics here. And although people might not like the fighting going on in Washington, D.C., at least we have another side, another viewpoint in the majority that we can actually advance our views. And I think that you continue to fight the fight, and I will continue to uphold our Constitution and also the federal Constitution, as I've sworn to, and we all should be. But I appreciate your time and giving me a chance to come down quickly. I'd love to talk to you anytime about any of these issues. Casino gaming just happens to be my expertise. But if you want to talk about any issues, please come by my office. I'm here. I'm going to be here until Thursday, so I'd love to talk to you, and thank you so much for coming out.